Hey, good morning, listeners, and welcome to the Morning Route Podcast. I am your host, Shay Johnson, and with us today is Traven Medawar. Traven, welcome to the Morning Route Podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Shane. Exciting to be here.
All right, man. No, I appreciate you joining us. So let's do this. Let's, if you would, take a minute or two. Please introduce yourself. Tell our listeners, again, who you are, where you're from, who you work with, all that good stuff.
Sure. My name's Traven Medawar. I'm the general manager for Ready Bus Company, which is part of Minnesota Coaches, which I know you had a previous segment with Garrett.
Yeah.
Every day I oversee multiple different locations, handling unexpected hiccups like weather delays and vehicle maintenance, and just kind of in the trenches a lot of times too with my team. But then we also work in a lot of higher level stuff. So I work with the reservation team and implementation team. So I'm constantly working on that the cutting edge technology side as well.
Well, that's why you're here today, man, because we're going to be talking a lot about technology. You're the guy for that. So before we jump too much in, I just want to ask, how did you find your way into the school bus industry? What was your path?
Sure. So I started working with an enterprise rent-a-car, which has a lot of correlations to the busing industry. I was an area manager. I was running about 9 locations and was in charge of about 1,200 cars. So it was a pretty big area. And COVID hit, and as you can imagine, all cars. You got to imagine we had thousands of cars, right? Now, do we have thousands of parking spots? Absolutely not.
No.
So when that happened, all of those cars came back. So next thing you know, and this was in California, we were filling up Angel Stadium. We're filling up the Pomona Fairplex. We're filling up everything, right? And then we had to downsize. So I ended up cutting a lot of my managers and a lot of the personnel, and it was a very challenging time as we went through that. So next step was, okay, what do I want to do in the long run? I want to start working with some technology. I want to start working on some future. So I made the leap to start launching Amazon facilities. So I launched an Amazon facility in Bakersfield, California, that's where I truly got. I've always been extremely interested in technology, but that's where I truly got acclimated with what you can do.
Very interesting. So you're out in California. I got to ask then, how do you end up here in the Midwest?
So I'm out in California, and my wife is just not happy. She is not liking the California way of life. She's not liking the California traffic and everything else, the dangers and such. And she wants to move
I was
closer.
going to ask if it was the taxes. Just the taxes alone might do it, but
it could have been the taxes too. Yeah. So she's like, I want to move closer to my family. So next thing you know, we take the leap. A family friend of ours was close friends with the Regans, and got us in contact, and decided to make the leap to Minnesota.
Well, I'm glad you made the leap. Landing with Minnesota Coaches with the Regan family. What a great spot to be. Great family, great organization that you're with. Minnesota Coaches, just a wonderful business, a wonderful contractor here in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area. So glad you're here.
Thank you for those kind words. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I also know you are, just full disclosure, I'm on the Minnesota School Board Operations Association. You are as well. So we work together in that role, in that capacity as well. So it's fun to be on board with you.
It has been fun. It's been there's been a lot of great times and a lot of learning. So it is, if anyone gets a chance to be on the board, it is a huge opportunity.
It really is. And that's a whole nother discussion, but it's a great opportunity to be on there and represent our wonderful contractors here in Minnesota. So I'm glad you're part of that as well. Again, just a couple things I just like to ask, and I always find it interesting to hear from people, hear from our guests, kind of this question, but I like to ask, like, for you guys, and I don't mean Minnesota Coaches, I just mean for you, in our industry, in the school bus world, what do you see as our biggest challenge right now?
I think you'll hear it echoed 100 times as driver shortages and keeping personnel and making sure that we have the right people in the right places. I think the rising of costs and tariffs and things like that are going to be playing another huge part in kind of what we do, and is going to change our landscape. And costs are becoming a real factor. The margins back in the day, I think people were getting close to 40% margins, 30% margins. Those margins keep decreasing. And I
Yeah.
think that's going to push along.
No, go ahead. Sorry about that, Jim. Go ahead and finish.
I said, and I think that's going to push a lot of the mom and pop owners out of the industry is those margins keep narrowing, the liabilities keep going up.
Yeah, and it's not even our subject matter here today, talking about tariffs, but myself and another one of my coworkers here today, we had a small roundtable discussion with Congressman Brad Finstad, who is Minnesota District 1 U.S. Congressman. And we're just talking about the taxes, right? And hopefully the House, the Senate, President Trump will continue to extend or make permanent the tax cuts. And so he was asking for input from business owners, where we sit with that whole thing. And one of the things that I reminded Congressman Finstad about, I didn't have to remind him, I already know that he knows and he's aware. But if they don't make these tax cuts permanent, all of a sudden now we have this tariff situation sitting on top of us. And I got a call yesterday from one of our vendors here in Minnesota, one of our dealers, Traven, and said, hey, the cost of the bus beginning April 1st is going to go up $2,500. And I'm like, dang. He goes, well, that's not the worst of it. On top of that, there's going to be a $2,500 price point put on each unit sold as well. That's that's attributed directly to tariff. So $5,000 per unit. So that was one of the things that I spoke to the Congressman Finstad about, was again making these tax cuts permanent. What's happening with this whole tariff part of things, and you're right. That margin just keeps getting narrow and narrow and narrower. And I hate to agree with you on the point of it driving out the smaller operators, the mom and pops, because that's not good for our industry. So, but it seems like it's on the horizon, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're starting to see a lot of people transition, it's challenging because you got people that have been in the industry for 100 years, right?
Yeah. It's going by the wayside, unfortunately. But all right, well, we're not here to talk about tariffs and all that here today. We're going to do it next time, though, I promise you. But let's do this too. If you would quickly share, away from your day job, obviously I know that you're a dad, you're a husband. What is it you like to do? Those hobbies outside of work. What makes you happy outside of work?
Oh, 100%. So I've got two little ones. I've got Grace and Luke. Grace is 6 and Luke is 3, and my wife Emily, and they're my everything. So being able to do as many things as I can with them is a big thing. So we have made a commitment to try to hit every state park. So that's been ongoing. Awesome. The last 2 years, I think we've hit 20. So we've been to quite a bit of the state parks in Minnesota, and they're incredible. Each one has its own great feature. So we've been really happy with that. And we'll work on national parks soon too. So that's soon to be coming. And we've done quite a bit of national parks, but I'd like to try to hit as many as I can. And then avid football fan. My sister and I do a new football stadium every year. So last year was New York, and that was Broncos Jets, and it was a really fun game.
Go Broncos!
There it is.
Go, man. No, you and I definitely have that in common. We've talked about that a few times. We are both Denver Bronco fans, and I am a believer, Bo Nix. So hoping for a great year this year with him and Coach Payton. So we'll see where that goes.
Sure. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So let's do this. Let's get into our subject matter here today. We are here today to talk about AI, artificial intelligence. And I got to quick share this. So this morning, wife and I are talking, and she's like, oh, what do you got going today at work? And I quickly, tell her I got a meeting with the congressman, that'll be fun. And then 1:00, having a podcast with Traven. And she's like, oh, what are you guys talking about? And I go, AI. And she goes, you don't know anything about AI. And I go, no, you're right. So I got Traven coming on here. So I don't feel alone probably saying I don't know anything about AI. I think it's probably where most of us probably fall right now, not knowing, not sure, what is this thing? And I have to quick share this too, because Man, you talk about being wrong, and I'll always admit when I'm wrong. Last summer, we were at our MSVOA conference up in the cities, and during one of the day sessions, I was saying something about AI, and Traven, you said to me, you're like, you need to get on board. I'm kind of paraphrasing. You're like, dude, you need to get on board, and I'm like, no, I'm post-it notes and this and that, and I'm not doing this AI thing. We're 9 months past that, and Traven, I'm doing the AI thing the best that I can with what I know. So you were right, I was wrong. I'm trying to learn the best that I can. But so let's start with this, if you would. What is AI?
Well, so AI, in simple terms, is artificial intelligence. It refers to a computer system that can perform tasks, usually requiring human intelligence. So like learning, decision making, pattern recognition, prediction, all of those things are some of the things that AI is capable of helping you with. And it's crazy how quickly it's evolving. I mean, you ask me right now, what is AI? I'm going to tell you that, well, this is what it is. But if you would ask me a year ago, it's changed so differently. Over the past year, it's surged in popularity, right? There's so many different aspects that have surged with chatbots and even navigation systems using AI for predictive traffic feeds, right? It's things that are happening in our everyday life that we're not noticing anymore, or that we're not noticed, or we're not paying attention to, and it's continuing to evolve, and it's crazy. It is really crazy, and it can help us in so many ways.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
my guess would be that many of us are experiencing AI somewhere in our life, somewhere in our job every single day, and we're brushing up against it or possibly using it. And like you said, we probably didn't even know how to realize it.
You're watching Netflix. You're using AI when you're watching Netflix. It's
Yeah.
suggesting based off of what your previous suggestions were, a TV show for you to watch that you'll
Right.
like based off of what you looked. It's everywhere.
And it's everywhere and it's affecting everything, right? So what are some different platforms then? And I guess what I mean by that, and maybe I'm not saying it correctly, is you have ChatGPT, right? So what are some other AI, again, if I'm saying it correctly, platforms of AI?
Sure. So generative AI, you've got ChatGPT, Gemini, and Microsoft Copilot. Those are the three big ones. Those are the big names that you're seeing in your everyday kind of search
Okay.
history and all that stuff. Then you've got kind of like video productions with Sora, and there's so many different other facets, right? You've got Grammarly. If you wanted to use Grammarly, where it will audit everything that you're typing and help you use proper grammar. There's so many different types of AIs that are out now that can help you with everyday tasks, and you've got so much of it evolving too. There's a new one coming out every single day. There's a new
Wow.
system coming out. So in China, right? They released Deep for half the price of what, or they did it for what, $3 million or $5 million, something of that nature, where ChatGPT is dumping billions into it. It's just becoming more available.
Yeah, it's just crazy. What was the one you said? Grammarly?
Grammarly.
Grammarly. Okay, I got to remember that one because I am terrible with my grammar, the English. I'm terrible with it, so I need to remember that one to help me clean up some things. So,
It's pretty cool. It pops up on your screen and it automatically goes to everything that you're doing. And
wow, that's
it'll
amazing.
yell at you. It'll point out things that you don't pay attention to, your tone, how you sound to others, your direction, things. It's just so many different things that you just, and then it'll give you a report card at the end.
Of how you did. So, with that too, I know there's another one, and I've played around with it a little bit. And what I mean by that, I just go into it and I'll type something into it, and I've actually with this one, I've gotten a few responses back saying I don't have a response for that, and that one is Grok, Grok. I'm sure you've heard of that. I
Sure.
think it's an Elon Musk AI one that he's developing, but it's so new that there's a lot of things that you put into it. It doesn't have a response yet, but
No, these large language models are learning from us. And that's part of the scary part as well, because it is taking some of the data that you enter into it and it's turning it to make it fit you. So it does take a while to learn. So the more we're putting into it, so ChatGPT is getting better every day because of us, because of the
yeah,
data that we're putting into it.
yeah, it's just crazy. Like I said, I've used that one. I've used Gemini. I've just Started playing around with Grok. So again, going back to last June, you said, hey, you need to get on board. I was like, nope, here I am. I'm messing around with these different AI platforms. So it's an amazing tool and resource. And for me, I'm scratching the surface. There's so much more to it that I don't even know if I can get there, but it's so helpful from what I'm using it for right now. I share with my wife, like, it's amazing how you can put in a few keywords because you want to write a letter, maybe you want to develop a policy or an SOP. You just plug in some things, but basically tell it what you're wanting it to do or look for. And next thing you know, you got like a 2 or 3 page policy written for you within 30 seconds, which in the past would probably take 6, 7, 8 hours to really develop and lay out. It's amazing.
It is amazing, and it is incredible. And the amount you put into it is the amount you're going to get out of it. Okay. So if you tell it to create you a marketing plan, it'll create you a generic marketing plan. But if you tell it, create a marketing plan for Palmer bus service using data from Minnesota and ask me questions that'll best fit for you to describe that marketing plan, it will take that to a next level, right? So the amount of data you're putting into it, the better responses you'll get. So a lot of people are using AI as a surface level. So they'll say, give me a marketing plan, or what's the best place to eat, or what's and just kind of, and so on. And the detail, there's GPTs that help you write GPTs now. So the detail is
crazy.
Key.
It is so crazy. So let me ask you this too, and you touched on it just a couple minutes ago, was how quickly it's advancing. Like where we're at today with what existed a year ago, it's night and day, right? Does the speed of it, do you have a concern with how fast it's going and the growth of it? Is there any concern there?
I think there is concern because there's very little regulation on it. So you see, I think it's called the Deep, which is the Chinese-based one. I've never really used it, but you see them, they're banned from the United States already, right?
Okay.
So it came out, it's banned from the United States because they just don't know where all this data is going, right? And how the companies are using the data. So like ChatGPT, if you used a paid version, right? Most your data is not stored. There's ways to make sure your data is not stored. But if you're using the free version, everything that you write is open source material. So they'll be able to take that information and go. So what's happening now is a lot of people are posting documents. They'll be posting like hey, here's my contract. Can you break down this contract? Well, all that contract is stored. So all of that information is stored. And that's always the scary part. Now, some of that functionality, you can do that with the base model ChatGPT, but you've got to really use that paid version to be getting the most out of it. So you're safe with the paid version, right? But the free version is definitely a challenge. And that kind of goes through it all.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I know here for our company, just a few months ago, we were kind of, people were using it, but nobody was really using it, if that makes sense. And maybe a few here and there. And I think for the most part, most folks that were using some type of AI were using ChatGPT. Our director of IT here just very recently, like, okay, no more ChatGPT, going to directly what you were just saying, kind of that open market and the data was being collected. So we have gravitated towards and are using Gemini now. So went away from the ChatGPT model because of what you were speaking into with that kind of, it's just there for the public to capture and use, I guess.
Yeah. So I see it in two ways, right? It's thrilling because it opens the doors to endless possibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can now develop AI for real-time analytics instantly, adjusting bus routes, maintenance schedules based in a minute, right? You can get that data. If you were to give a large data sheet to ChatGPT, it could be 50 pages, right? You can tell it, analyze these route copies, analyze these route times, develop the best route, and it will go do it. It'll pull them up on a map. It'll show you its source data. It'll show you all of that good stuff. But then it's also concerning because the rapid adoption comes challenges, right? Data privacy, ethics, job security,
All of that.
The regulations just aren't there yet. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate your input and opinion on that too, because that was something I've been thinking about too. Is just like this thing's moving so fast. it's quicker than what we're reacting to it, right? And so I appreciate your insight to that as well. And you just hit on probably where I was going to go next. AI in the school bus world. Um, I've talked to other guests that we've had on the Morning Route podcast here, and it seems like in the school bus world, technology has always been at least 10 years behind in the school bus world. Where now, I don't think we're 10 years behind anymore. Like we're at the tip of the spear. It seems like in a lot of things here in the school bus world now. But what are some ways AI is helping us now in the school bus world with the different technologies that you can share?
I think we're still, and it's funny. You don't think we're behind, but we are still behind. Like we're behind even on the motor coach side of things, right?
Mm.
So if you look at motor coach, and a lot of that is because of that price tag and the narrow margins that we brought up at the beginning of this podcast. You look at like Samsara that we're currently using for all of our motor coaches, right? Now it's got telematics in it that will use AI to detect if your driver's falling asleep. It'll use AI to detect if your driver's going too fast, if he does a rolling stop. If he is close to a crash, it has crash detection. It'll let you know if a crash occurred or something of that nature, right? Now, we have them in our motor coaches, but there's no way as a company we can afford it in our school buses at this time, right? AI is here, but then it goes from the telematics side. It shows so many other things. It'll tell you your CO2 gases your bus is released, the amount of fuel that you use. If you're idling too much, it'll show how long the bus has been idling. Then from a maintenance perspective, it'll show the maintenance side of things. It'll tell you when a fault code pops up and what those fault codes are. Do you have any of that in our school buses yet? Mm-hmm. And there's not many companies that do. And if they do, it's not ones that I've seen. And so I think we're still a little behind, but there's so many different things that we can use it for. And we can kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't disagree with that. I think, like I said, it's just forever. It seems like we've been so far behind. It just seems like we've really caught up. We're using these technologies. One place that maybe I'll push back a little bit is I do believe that we can afford the technologies. And I want to say this in a really respectful way, and I don't mean this in a critical way towards anybody or any school district, any superintendent or school board, that, when we sit down with the school district and we're renewing a contract, so that means we're renegotiating. And I understand that the school board, superintendent, they really want those dollars to go into the classroom. And that's a priority for them versus the school bus. And so the dollars are there. It's just, where do you want the dollars to go? And, if we could get another 1-2% sometimes from a school district, we could have these technologies then put into the school bus, right? And we could have the Samsara, like you said, and we could have the advanced driver assistant systems where it's detecting if a driver's nodding off. If there was something unsafe that the driver's doing out on the road, we'd get a real-time alert notifying us. So when that driver comes back in the office, we can pull them aside and go, hey, you're going to sit down here. We're going to watch your route, and you're going to watch you maybe nodding off, doing something unsafe on the road. So I think the dollars are there. It's just, where do you want to spend them? How does the school district want to negotiate contracts with us on the contracting side?
I agree with you. And most of the time, I've been part of a lot of these conversations, just as you have, right? Mm-hmm. And you start bringing up certain things like that, and the mood gets quiet, right? Yeah. It's not something that they really want to bring up. The idea is great. And they ask for the cost. And as soon as you give the cost, then it's good. It doesn't go from there.
I don't think so. Yeah. And like I said, I understand it.
And you look at it, though, you're right. There are some technologies, right? Now we have geofences where once you reach a certain geofence, it's letting parents know, hey, your kid is 5 minutes out, which is awesome, right? It optimizes routings, but there's still programs that are still a challenge, right? Like they have to build the map specific for your areas in certain companies, and it's still a little bit more cumbersome than it really needs to be. Go ahead. I said with quite a bit of cost involved with it.
Yeah, they're not cheap, and I get why they're not cheap. So again, it's just figuring it out, right? From the vendor, the cost from the vendor, because as people maybe they know or don't know, when you're wanting to do routing and have up-to-date maps, you have to buy the maps for that county and a GIS piece. And so there's an expense to that. So it's not cheap, but yeah, like you said, it's a lot of times it's the district's like, hey, we want to do this and we want you to do this. And then you share with them the cost and it's, we can't afford that right now. So, but you can, you just want to use dollars over here again, which again, I'm not being in a critical way. Yeah. So with that too, yesterday I met with a group of students from, one of our local schools, and it's a student advisory council, and they wanted to learn about busing, and they had tons of questions. Some are really good questions. Some were kind of actually fun, more silly questions, but, it was like, how do you assign kids to a bus? Like what goes into it? So we walked through, obviously where do you live in proximity to the school, the walking boundary, the routing, how you kids get assigned to each school, this, that, and everything else. And then one of the questions was somebody had brought up about, hey, isn't there an app where you can see where the bus is at? And so I started explaining, we use TransFinder here at Palmer Bus Service. So I started explaining the Stop Finder app, where again, like what you said, Traven, is you can, either the student or parent has this app. And as soon as the bus gets into that zone that you created, you get that instant alert. Hey, the bus is 5 blocks away, right? So, hurry up, get your shoes on and finish your Pop-Tart and get out to the bus stop, type thing, versus sometimes standing out there 10, 15 minutes, in 0-degree weather. This erases that, where the kids don't have to stand out. Or if the bus is running, say, 10, 15 minutes late because of weather, or there was a mechanical issue or something, you can send them an instant alert saying, hey, bus 10 is running, 10 minutes behind. So again, that instant alert, again, all this in this AI world, that we're using, this technology is pretty cool.
It is so cool. And think of it, in Minnesota, do we ever get cold weather, right?
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare that we get that cold weather. So yeah, no, like I said, so what's your thought or opinion, Traven, on what does AI mean for, I guess, drivers / school buses? What's your crystal ball in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see maybe a breakthrough happening, with the driver to relation to the school bus?
Sure. So it really depends on kind of adoption, right? How many, and that's the biggest challenge with the kind of a school district. And I mean, 5 to 10 years, you're talking about maybe having the school bus drive itself, right? Or have some type of collision detection warning system, which we're already starting to see. We're starting to see them come out with some of that type of stuff, right?
Yep.
Our cars, it's pretty crazy to me that our cars are a lot more sophisticated than our school buses, right? And you're driving 50, 60, 70 kids. And yet your car is got twice the amount of technology in it. I know my wife's car, it saves her every day. She pulls into the garage, it tells her how close she's getting.
Yeah.
And
Beep, beep, beep.
yep. Yeah. And in the day she took my car, she was just like, I don't know how you do it. I can't drive.
Yeah, the old school with no alarm system, huh?
Yeah, old school with no alarm system. But
So
and that's where we're at with the car industry, and then now at the busing industry. Imagine you look at Elon Musk, right? He just released a video of his people mover, essentially, right? Where it's this van that's fully autonomous, and this is the wave of the future, and it's multi-passenger. I think it seated 15 passengers and such, fully autonomous. Now, would you be able to do that with a school bus? I don't think so. The reason being is, who's going to manage the kids? So maybe the school bus driver, if we do get that fully autonomous vehicle that Elon Musk is bringing up, maybe that school bus driver changes. Maybe instead of doing that routine driving kind of task, he's more in managing behaviors, and he's helping direct kids. And that's kind of where I'd see it would go. I don't think that school bus driver would ever lose their job in its entirety. We're still going to need somebody else. But I do think there is going to be a world where that bus is going to drive itself. How long that's going to take?
That was my next question is do you see AI replacing the school bus driver? So you beat me to it. So it's really interesting. It would solve our driver shortage, I guess. So I'm for that. You don't have to worry about getting people hired anymore, so to speak, and going through the testing program and the CDL. But I 100% agree with you. I don't think you can run a school bus, even if it's autonomous, without somebody in there. There has to be maybe call it that backup. If something was to happen, you have some kind of a mechanical technology issue or the bus, whatever, and you got to manually override to drive it. Or like you said, student management at the very least.
But and maybe we're not there in 5 to 10 years, but what I do see is a world where it does make the drivers' lives a lot easier, very similar to what our cars are doing now, right? So if we are driving down the road and it has that collision detection warning, it sees the car in front of it, it helps the bus driver stop. I think that'll be a big difference. I think if it was to use some of that technology that's already there with Samsara, with the sleepiness detection,
Yeah.
in the harsh brakes and all that type of stuff, those telematics they're going to be invaluable with the buses idling too much, I think all of that data is there and we already have that technology. I just think it's going to take 5 years to kind of catch up.
Yeah, I think and this happens to people in their POVs, but it happens in school buses, it happens in tractor trailers, just happens. And it's that thing, kind of in a blind spot where maybe you stop and you start to go and there's a blind spot, or maybe the sun is in your eyes and you just miss that car that's coming, right? Because you don't see it, human error, where I could really see a huge use for AI, not letting that vehicle move. That the AI is capturing another vehicle coming, and when you go to press on the gas, it doesn't let you go. I think that would be, I would love to see something like that again. That kind of that crash resistant, type technology in there. So, and I believe it's probably being worked on.
And we already have that. We already have that technology. Your car can do that. If
Right.
you have a newer car, it can already do that. Now the challenge is, and you talked about it earlier, right? It's already going, the school bus price is going up $5,000, which I mean, you're looking at $100,000 for a school bus. That's 5%. It's going up 5% next year.
Yeah, well, I think the cost of a new school bus this year for a diesel 77 passenger bus they're being quoted, and this is not with any bells or whistles, you're going to be sitting between 140 and 150. Yeah, it's crazy. And now, you tack on another $5,000 on top of that. So, but like you said, though, with the school bus side of it, it would be fantastic to have, because like you said, you already have this for your private vehicle, and here's a bus that's carrying, 50, 60, 70 kids. What's more important, right, than protecting those kids? So getting that technology put on there, where again, as much as we can, sometimes override that human error that's involved. That happens, right? Like I said, sun's in your eyes. There was something, you were distracted, and all of a sudden you try to go, but it doesn't let you go. Be great.
And what you just brought up is why AI is going to start replacing some of those task-related roles that we do, is because of all the mistakes that we currently do. Now, we know that it may change our landscape completely, right? We may a data entry position is now done by a macro or something like that. Somebody presses a button and is able to figure it out. Now, how many of us really know how to build macros from a base level all the way up, right? Well, AI, now you can. Shane, you can build a macro. If you want to go on your computer and you ask ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those sites,
I got enough to do already.
You can do it. Or you don't have to have all the knowledge anymore. You don't have to be a computer scientist to write code anymore. Mm-hmm. You don't need any of that stuff. It will help you do it.
Yeah. It is amazing. Like I said, I was sharing with my wife a couple things that I've done on there. And you just go in and you plug in a couple keywords, and it just starts building this thing. And then no, I don't want this, I want this. And then you type that in, and then it, does its thing. And within 5 minutes, you get to that picture in your head is now in front of you. It's amazing.
I was using it yesterday too. We were working on one of our Facebook websites, right? We didn't have access to it. No idea how to figure it out. Facebook platform is pretty challenging for us to kind of go through and navigate and find certain things when you're on your business profile. And so I asked ChatGPT, how do you do this? How do you help me with it? And first thing it sends out is something that I really can't use. I don't know. I'm not saying what it's talking about or any of that type of stuff. Well, I asked it to give me a play-by-play, step-by-step, and show me all the detail on how to get there. And eventually we were able to get there.
Yeah.
But it's those things that we would have spent hours on the internet searching and trying to figure out, which it helps us do in 5 minutes.
Oh man, the efficiency is incredible. And that's what I told my wife, what used to take me hours, I can do in 5 minutes. The efficiency is absolutely incredible. Another question then too, Traven, is this, I guess, a worry or fear of AI. And what I mean by that, and we've already touched on it here a little bit, and I think that's, you hear this from a lot of people, is AI replacing people and maybe the ethical implications of that. Thoughts, opinions with that piece.
I wouldn't think of it as much as AI replacing people. It's more of AI replacing tasks that we don't really want to do. I think it's going to take us to continue to learn and develop and make better versions of ourselves to kind of to do some of this data programming, data analytics. But like my kids, I know one day is going to be able to do this and they'll have no problem. They're going to be way past whatever I can do at this point. And I think our focus may shift in terms of what we're learning, but I don't think the jobs will be gone completely. There's always going to be some type of human element that's going to have to add that human feel, that human touch. The AI just can't get there. So even you see all the different things that they come up, and there's so many different GPTs that are trying to sound human. And every time you use one of their prompts, it's nowhere near. They put rocket ships and all this type of stuff and in some little language, but it's not going to be able to replace feeling. It's not going to be able to replace heart.
Yeah, you got the feelings, you got empathy, right? That people have for people, where you're not going to get that from an AI piece, right? I just don't think, I just can't see that ever working in that arena. I heard this, it was Elon Musk. I think, if I remember right, he was with Joe Rogan, and they were talking about this. And I think, and if I get this wrong, I apologize. Somebody can fact check me, but I think it was Joe Rogan, and he'd asked him kind of the same question about, AI replacing people. And Elon said that it wouldn't surprise him that there's going to be a segment of people that will be replaced, and that's probably maybe 15, 20 years away. And Joe Rogan's like, well, what do you do with that? And Elon Musk was like, I don't know. Is there a universal income that people will get? And I'm not a proponent of that. Okay. I just want to be very clear. I think that's even worse. So I hope that does not happen. And the reason I say that is because people need to have purpose. And that's for me, when I look at this, the last thing I'd want is for people to be replaced by this technology component and they lose purpose in life. And I think we saw a glimpse of that during COVID, where people weren't at work, and you saw, and the data came out later of increase in alcoholism or drug usage. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, domestic violence went up. It was just that the idle hands, right, where people they turned to negative things. And again, I hope, again, and that's what the speed of this worries me. Hopefully it'll slow down. There'll be some safeguards, some rails put in with all of that. But I think it's important that people don't lose purpose. People need to have purpose.
No, I agree with you. And what is leading this AI thing is cost, right? We're trying to drive down costs, and AI is a way to do it, right? Machines don't get tired. They don't need pay raises. Right. They don't care about doing an often repetitive task that's mind-numbing, right?
No ESST. You don't have to worry about giving
ESST.
Yeah.
The machines don't need any of that.
Right.
But just, they don't need it. They don't need any of that, but they do still need direction. And there's going to have to be one of us or someone that's going to be able to give that direction, leading to a whole different type of job market that we probably have never seen, or we definitely have never seen before, which that's what it's going to lead to. But I will tell you, personally, I couldn't do that repetitive task of entering payroll every single day. That's not me. That's not personally what I can do. And you tell me a robot can do it, that would be a great world. Well, what can I do with that payroll person? I will be able to find a position that is going to add value as well. Yeah. There's always going to be another position.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think historically, when you look at, historically, when there's a technology breakthrough, what happens, right? And I was kind of thinking about this morning. I made a little note on it. When the invention really of the automobile came about, what happened? Who got replaced within a few years of the automobile? Is really the blacksmiths, the farriers that did, the horseshoes on horses, right? Because horses, it kind of started being eliminated. I don't need to take a horse across, to the next town. I got an automobile. So those farriers, my guess would be, moved from their little shop here, and they went to work in the factory building an automobile, right? Like kind of your point that this person, there's not a need here anymore, but hey, here's something over here, right? So again, that purpose, that person still has purpose, and there's something else, sometimes even better or greater to do.
I agree. And I don't know about you, but I'm a huge history person, right? I love history.
Yeah, I love history.
We can see it throughout history. And I can look at our most recent, the cell phone, right? What did the cell phone eliminate? It eliminated so many things. Do we need a landline anymore? No. Do we even really need a computer anymore for a lot of tasks, right? We need computers for certain things for business, but the majority of people are able just to get away with just their cell phone. Yeah. Do we need a camera anymore? No, we don't need a camera. Our phones got better cameras than sometimes those Nikons or any of that type of stuff. Yeah. But what did it lead into? It led into so many different things, right? So you get rid of newspapers, you get rid of all of these different things that the cell phone gets rid of, but it adds so many different things. Yeah. To social media managers and designers and influencers and content creators and all of this stuff kind of added into the mix when we got rid of the cell phones.
I will say it's funny you bring that up, because I don't know if you were too young where this didn't happen to you. I'm not sure, but I know for me, when I went to school, and a lot of us older folks kind of joke about it, our math teacher would always tell us, you're not going to have a calculator. You can't use a calculator. You had to figure everything out by hand. And that was what they always said. You're not going to have a calculator. Well, no, I got a calculator. It's on my phone. Got a calculator 24/7. So yeah, technology. So.
You're right. I know graduating high school, I just started getting phones when I was getting to that graduation part, and we started out with a Nokia, right? And those Nokia cell phones were able to play Snake, and we're able to do little basic things, but that was it. That was the cell phone. It was mainly to contact mom and pop. And to what the cell phone can do now is just crazy. But I feel like that's going to be the leap with AI. I think that leap from having the cell phone from 2006 to now, it's a huge leap. I think AI between now and 5 years is going to do the same thing. I think it's going to accelerate faster.
Yeah, it'll probably be unrecognizable, like many things that have happened to us really in the last 15 years or so, is my guess. So with that too, then I think again that here's another concern that people have with AI, is that it has to be, I don't know if the right word or not, is programmed. Somebody has to program AI, and bias now can be built into an AI platform. If I'm wrong in this, please shoot holes in it. But again, these are conversations that have happened. So how do we ensure then if bias can be built in, and so what you're looking at or typing and it's regurgitating that information back to you, how can we ensure that that is correct?
That question I've thought about multiple times, and it's hard to really do, right? We are being kind of manipulated consistently, right? We're getting manipulated with marketing. We're being manipulated with, you're talking about things, or you search thing one time, and next thing you know, it's pulling up on Facebook. It's pulling up on all these different types of things. And we're always going to have that manipulation, those bias we can push back against to a certain extent. but it's pretty hard when you feed it that way. And I know a lot of them like ChatGPT, and they're putting coding and they're really trying to go through and they're trying to weed out all of that bias. But I mean, its source is the internet. Its source is the internet. And so it takes it, I don't know, 4 to 6 months for it to replenish. So right now, if you're looking at ChatGPT, you're going through its data. Its data is from 2023 because it has not been able to update for 2024 yet.
Okay.
So you have data scientists that are going through and they're adjusting and they're fixing kind of as much as they possibly can, or they, not really personally, right? They have codes that do that. But how many of those are going to be missed? Can you think of how many different ways someone says the same thing and be able to take that out?
Right.
I couldn't.
So a question then that comes to my mind, and maybe others are thinking here too as they're listening to this, is that when you say that information comes from the internet, so if I use ChatGPT and I just put in, hey, tell me what happened in Rome in 120 AD, and ChatGPT tells me something, if I go do the same thing, input the same thing into Gemini, will I get the same response, or could it look different from platform to platform to platform?
It could look different because of the source data it pulls. So
Okay.
if you type something into ChatGPT, at the bottom it will tell you what source data it pulled from. So like your example about Rome, I'd say 9 times out of 10 it's going to pull it from Wikipedia, right?
Okay.
But then it's going to fact check Wikipedia with some other different types of sources. So what I challenge everyone to do is look at that source data. So I know one time I was asking it to price some buses for us, right? We were looking to purchase 100 buses and we're trying to figure out what's the best pricing for it. Because, pricing right now is kind of all over the place, right? So I had it pull all of the data for all of these buses. It priced these buses and it was really close to what our estimates were, right? It was within $5,000 of what our estimates were. So then I looked at what the source came from, and it came from the Bus Blue Book. It came from
a
multitude of different sites. You look at the source, it's pulling that data from that, but who knows where it could have pulled it from, right?
Right. So would a piece of advice be, if you're not sure or you just want to double check, whatever ChatGPT may tell you, go to Gemini, go to Grok, and is that a way just to check, resource to resource or platform to platform, that the information you're getting is close to correct?
I don't think I think the best way is you just got to really look it up.
Okay.
It will tell you personally that some of the data it says is not correct. I think the best way to do it is how specific your response is to it and where you want it to pull that data is the best way, and then pull that source data from it. I mean, you can ask Gemini, what's your source data? And it'll give you a list of where that sources are pulled from. And you can say, hey, that fakenews.com is not the source I really wanted to pull from, right?
Right.
And
that'd be a good practice that people should start early with, is understand where that source data is coming from, then look at that so you understand where the information's coming from.
I would agree. Yes. Cause I mean, we pulled that bus data. It was Auto Trader. It was everything that we would usually use to kind of look at some of our bus data, and kind of take that into effect. And that's with kind of everything we do. Go ahead.
Okay. No, appreciate that. So just we'll start kind of winding down here a little bit. So let me ask this question to you, for people or for companies. And when I say, for people like me last June that are hesitant, to, do this AI thing, what is your advice? Like, where do you start? How do you start? What would be your advice be there?
I'm gonna be a little blunt with that question. Is you've got to start using it or you're gonna get left behind. And I say that with all due respect. There's so many different things you're gonna fall behind on that other people are gonna be able to do at a better level. And embracing it doesn't mean diving in head first with the massive, complex deployments or any of that type of stuff. Embracing it is starting small. Identify a specific challenge, like later rides or on a particular route, and pilot an AI-based solution, right? Start with something small and see what it's able to give you for data. I will say right now, I have an account where we do different routes and I have my drivers logging each time that they do. What I'm able to do is take out all that source data from each stop and everything like that, put it into ChatGPT, and it will give me, if I'm early or late for a route, it will give me the passenger counts and it will break it all down for me and put it in a report that I can send to my client. Now,
Amazing.
that would take hours to do. It would take hours to do, to manually enter in data and sift through the data and build a pivot table or do all of that types. It would take hours to build that. And it does it in 3 minutes. So
It's absolutely amazing. And one of the things that jumps out to me when you say that, for us that, again, live in the school bus world, is many times we get asked by a school district that has, say it's a larger school district, several thousand student population, several buildings within the district, right? So the bus has got to get from here to here in 6 minutes and it takes 15. Like, I can't do this in 6 minutes, right? So they'll ask us, well, can you run a bell time study? And in the past, before this stuff, to do a bell time study, it was all manual work. I mean, you had to sit there on a map and the markers and, sketch all this out and this and that. And to your point, you can do that now and be done 10, 15 minutes with the bell time study, understanding that, okay, in order for us to do this, to make this time, this school bell time has to ring at, 7:37. This needs to be 8:15, something like that, right? But you got this program that can do it for you now in a matter of minutes. Amazing.
I agree. And I would say even a step further, challenge your drivers to use it. And I'll tell you how they can. So you can tell a driver here, so they're going from Rochester to La Crosse, right? And they want a place to eat. Well, drivers don't know all the best places to eat on the side of the road or what conditions the best place to stop or any of that type of stuff. You can plug into ChatGPT, hey, I'm leaving Rochester, I'm going to La Crosse. What's the best place to eat that I can fit my bus in? And it will give you a really good advice.
Absolutely amazing. It is. It's so cool. Yeah. Yeah. In the past, you'd get a bus stuck somewhere like, hey, I got into the slot, I can't get out, right? So yeah, it eliminates that problem now.
Sure. And even from an HR perspective, you have an employee, right? And you're having an employee situation. You have it record in Word. You take all of that data, you paste it in ChatGPT, and you give it a report, and it will break down a report for you. There's just so many different applications, and I think if we use them as a team, it'll make us all better.
Yeah, and we'll kind of close here. I want to say this. When you and I began talking about doing this podcast together, you said to me, you know what? Whatever I can do to help the industry, I'm all in. And you just said that too, right there. And I want to thank you for taking the time here today. And it meant a lot to me when you said that. And I think it speaks a lot about our industry, is that we're here to help each other. And hey, if I know something, I want to share it with you. Because if it makes you better, it makes our industry better, it makes us each better. And that relationship piece, I know I had Jason Anderson on here from United Bus Sales, a few podcasts ago, and we talked a lot about that, relationships, and I see that here today too. Again, because you said that whatever I can do to help the industry, I want to do that. So thank you for that.
I feel truly blessed that I was brought into an industry that's like that, and this is something that this industry has been like for years. So I'm really happy to be part of the team. Really happy to be a board member, and like I said, whatever I can do to help, reach out.
Awesome. No. All right. So anything else you'd like to share before we go?
No, I think we're good.
All right. So just so everybody knows, I don't even know if we scratched the surface, but we had to start somewhere with this AI piece. So Traven, you will be coming back. Probably the more that I learn and I get questions, I'm going to have you back on here, because I'm sure if I have a question about it, many others have the same question. So we're going to be sure to have you back. So we'll close with this. The morning route, as everybody knows that listens to the podcast here, the morning route starts with coffee. As we all know, every bus terminal opens up 5:36 a.m. For really the second thing that turns on after the light, the light switch, is the coffee maker gets turned on and they start brewing coffee for the drivers. So morning route doesn't happen without coffee. But my question for you, Traven, is if you had the opportunity to sit down with one person. It could be anybody. It could be somebody 100 years ago to present that's inspired you. It's had an impact on your life that, I would just love to have one cup of coffee with them and have a conversation. Who would that person be?
I think it would be my offensive line coach that I had at Benedictine College who passed away just recently.
Okay.
And I'd like to be able to sit down with him one more time. The guy just brought so much light and so much passion and so much care for the kids around him. And I think that's the business that we're in. We're in the business where we provide so much light, so much care. We're able to make a difference in these kids' lives every single day. So I'd love to sit down with them and reminisce and be able to tell them how I feel from my perspective now versus to when I was a player playing for him.
That's awesome. I love it. Obviously had a huge impact on your life. That's that shows. So no, thanks for sharing that. Again, appreciate our conversation today. I know for a fact we're going to do it again.
Thank you so much, Shane.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Stay up to date with the podcast by following us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to the Morning Route Podcast YouTube channel.